Hello everyone, it's Karina with Karina Loves to Plan. Thank you for joining me in my little corner of the internet. It's strange for me to say that because it is my little corner of the internet, but here I am, I'm going to be talking about pens, inks, planners, so sit down and relax and join me for, I guess, July's second episode of 15 Inks 30 Days. If you haven't seen this yet, what I try to do is do 15 inks or 15 pen and ink combinations over 30 days. I've adapted this to what I can sustainably do because 30 inks over 30 days is a lot, whereas 15 inks 30 days is a lot more sustainable for me. I can use that pen and ink combination over the course of 2 days and really get to know that pen and ink combination. So now we'll go ahead and get started. We'll go with inks 6 through 10. And I will be swatching in my Hobonichi A5 notebook. I'll also be doing paper swatches in my Hobonichi A6 Hone, as well as doing Zentangles. And then off camera, I will be journaling as well in my A5 Planner Monkey Co. notebook. Let's get started. The first pen and ink combination is my Just Turnings in the Swirly Joyful Kismet with Sailor Shikiori Kamoshika. And I'm going to take my Speedball B nib, which I will link in the description below, and this is on my River City Pen Co. nib holder. I've actually taken some of the ink sample and put it into a little painting palette here. Ooh. This was one of the inks that was sent to me a couple of months ago because I have a thing for brown inks. And somebody sent me some lovely, lovely brown and pinky brown and dusty pink inks, and I'm still working my way through them. So then I'm doing some figure eights with my stainless steel Kakamori nib and the line widths. Look at that. I love that color, and I love how it's in those swatches. It looks more like a rosy, dusty, pinky brown. So this, I have to remember what nib is on this. Is this an Architect nib? I cannot remember. It's an extra fine nib. So this is Sailor. Oh yes. Shikiori Kamoshika. This is an Architect nib. And this is in my Just Turnings. Swirly Joyful. Gosh, this is so smooth. Kismet. And this is an is it a fine or an extra fine? A fine Architect. So the broad strokes, or the horizontal strokes are broad, and then the downstrokes are narrow. So now I'm going to go ahead and do the paint swatches on the different papers. It's really funny to me how thick this side is getting. Like, if you want to see how chunky this A6 is, like, that's just a little over half the year I used. It's super, super chunky. So let's get my paintbrush here and paint on the different papers. So we have the Tomoe River paper. It almost looks like brown purple on this here. Then we've got Rhodia, Midori, and then Euroful, and then my favorite here is the Onion Skin, Yamamoto Bank, and Bank papers. So these three I actually purchased at the San Francisco Pen Show last year. So let's go ahead and do my rose. I find doing the rose really satisfying because it really tests the control and the pressure that you can get on your paintbrush. Adding a little water to that because it really is all about light pressure, lots of pressure, light pressure, light pressure, lots of pressure, little pressure. And adding water to brush can really bring out some of those lovely qualities in the ink. And also, these roses are never going to be perfect. But like, just look how pretty that is. So now I'm going to draw out the grid for my Zentangle using my Michaels ruler. I've had actually a couple of people mention to me that you can find this maybe on Amazon as a crafting ruler, so have a look out for that. And then this design, I had a specific design in my head and it did not come out to plan. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know what happened to the design that was happening in my head. But I think I'll try it in the next one. But I drew out some curves and then I drew a circle in the middle and then drew lines going out. A lot of these Zentangle designs are inspired by one another, so I'm sure that Carene, which is an Instagram account I've linked in the description below, I'm sure they've done something similar and I've taken inspiration from that. This is such a lovely ink. It's a gorgeous brown with hints of pink and purple depending on what angle you're looking at it. I had no issues with the pen or the ink on the paper, but I don't necessarily need a bottle of this. So I gave the ink a 9, the flow a 9, and the comfort level of my Just Turnings pen a 9. I really do like the way though that this pen matches the ink. I mean, the ink leans a little bit more brown, but there's some tones of that in this pen. Let's go ahead and look at the Zentangle. So just look at the way the ink looks on all of these different papers. On the Tomoe River paper, it's looking more like a dusty brown pink, and then on the Midori paper, because of that cream color, it's looking more brown, but then on the Iroful paper, it looks more purple pink. And then down here at the bottom with all these 3 papers, the Onion Skin, the Yamamoto Bank, and the Bank, they all look more brown. Really, really interesting. But then in the Zentangle itself, it really just looks brown. This is the hard thing with inks, is that even if you are using them over and over again and you're getting the shading in those spots, you're not going to get the same effect as swatching on different papers like this. And this is why I love being able to swatch on these papers and doing the roses, because you can really see the characteristics of the ink. So that for me is a Sailor Shikiori Kamoshika in my Just Turnings Swirly Joyful Kismet. The next pen and ink combination for, I guess, ink 7 is Birmingham Pen Co. Weathered Brick, and I have it inked in my Waterman Carene in the amber. I'm like, where do I put my stuff? Oh, I hadn't even taken some of this out yet and put it on my little palette here so that I could paint with it. And as recommended by a viewer, to pipette some of this onto a palette so that I'm not going straight back into the sample or to the bottle. Look at that. I think that's such a great match for that pen. Look at that beautiful purpley pink burgundy color. Lovely. And then putting some on my stainless steel nib here. Oh, that's coming off very, very wet. Lovely. It looks more pink in the swatch like that, but it is still really, really pretty. Getting that off my nib. And then we have, this is Birmingham Pen Co. What did I say? Weathered Brick? My memory. Weathered Brick. I had this nib tuned and smooth at the Chicago Pen Show, and now it's beautiful. What is it? Waterman Carene in amber. And this has, it's a fine nib that's been ground down to an extra fine. But oh, so far, loving that. So here I am now in my Hobonichi A6 Hone, and I'm going to paint on the Tomoe River paper. Oh, that's lovely. And then on the Rhodia, I'm always interested to see how much chromo shading does happen. And look at how much darker it looks on the cream Midori there. And then the onion skin doesn't even look like it's on taped on my sheet. And I'll wait for that to dry. But already the Midori paper is making it look more brown, more rusty. So then we'll go ahead and paint my rose. And this one actually is a rosy color. Ooh. my hand like twitched there from that petal, so it looks more like a banana than the C curve, but that's okay. It's funny, I love painting roses, but my favorite flower is actually a tulip. And I have difficulty painting tulips, even though they're so simple in terms of like, maybe there's 3 or 4 strokes, but I think it's because of its simplicity that I have so much trouble with it. And now back doing my Zentangles. I did the grid this time and I realized that I was on the right track with my previous Zentangle and decided to just keep doing it. It's basically curved lines over and over again. But what I like about this one is that the way that you do the Zentangle doesn't look like the way that it should be done, especially when it's all done. When it's all done, you wonder how these curved lines came about, and I can't wait to show you when this is done. This is such a beautiful ink, but this really bled through the paper in my Planner Monkey Co notebook, which is what I use for my multi-year journal. And the feathering was awful too. I really wanted to just throw the ink away. It seems to be the Birmingham Pen Co inks with my 2025 Tomoe River paper, which is so unfortunate. I gave the ink an 8 because it is beautiful, but the flow a 3 just because of how it bled and feathered on my paper. And I gave my Waterman Carene Amber a 9. Really so unfortunate. What I've really discovered this year is that, especially with the issues with the Tomoe River paper, I've had to stay away from Birmingham Pen Co inks just because they bleed through. They're the ones that bleed through the most in the new Tomoe River paper, so I'm going to have to stay away from that, unfortunately. But let's look at the Zentangle here. Now this ink works beautifully in this paper, but this is from a 2024 Hobonichi A6 Hone, so the paper is different to what is in my Planner Monkey Co multi-year journal. So in here it works well. There isn't much feathering happening, not as much bleed through, so it's a paper thing. And I say unfortunately, but because I'm using that Planner Monkey Co notebook for multiple years, so for 4 years, I'm going to have to stay away from Birmingham Pen Co inks during that time, which I'm a little sad about. But again, there's so many inks out there in the world that I'm not too sad. But anyway, it absolutely looks great on this paper. I love how burgundy pink it looks there, and look at how dark it looks on the Midori paper as well. But I really like the kind of pinky red purple this color is, and I love the way that it looks in the Zentangle. Really lovely. So except for the issues with the new Tomoe River paper, it's a beautiful ink. So that's Birmingham Pen Co Weathered Brick in my Waterman Carene and Amber. The next pen and ink combination, so ink 8, is a Diamine Shimmertastic Frosted Orchid, and I have it in my Leonardo Momento Zero Andromeda. So let's move that over here, and I'm using my new nib holder from Zodiac Pen Co that I got at the San Francisco, the Pacific Northwest Pen Show. So I still have my Speedball V nib in here. I feel like these 3 inks that I've just used have been very similar. And apologies for my scratchy voice. I seem to have either picked something up while traveling, or I have lost my voice due to all the talking. This is a really pretty purple, and the shimmer in there is stunning. I think it's such a great match for this pen. So here we go. We have Diamine Frosted Orchid in my Leonardo Momento Zero Andromeda. And this has, you guessed it, an extra fine nib, and that shimmer is holding up pretty well. So now I am in my A6 Hobonichi Hone, where I'm going to paint on the different papers. And I really love to see the effects of the ink and the paper once it's all dried. I feel like it's almost a bit of a waste if you don't try different things with the inks. If you're just writing with your inks, that's fine. Absolutely, that's fine. And that's the way you enjoy your inks. Absolutely. I'm the type of person where I don't write enough to be able to use all of my inks with the amount that I currently have in my collection. So I paint with them, I swatch with them, and just look at how beautiful this ink is turning out. Let's look at what this rose is going to look like. So then here we are, I'm going to paint my rose, and we're going to start off with a couple of C curves and then go around it with a little C curve. But then we do another C curve, but this time do light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure. That's a really big C curve. So you got to work on the control with your hands and controlling that pressure with the brush. And if it's a new brush that you haven't used before, it's definitely something to get used to. But it's such a meditative exercise. Love that. So now I'm going to draw out the grid for my Zentangle. I love doing these, not just because they look super cool, but because of the meditative practice. Over the weekend while I was in Portland, I actually met a Zentangle coach, and really she affirmed for me the reason that I do these repetitive strokes remove us from our executive functioning on a day-to-day basis. So we're really just focusing on the repeating of the same lines over and over again. And that in itself is the meditation and how we can really help ourselves get centered and grounded. And that's why I love doing these, not just because of the art and, you know, the fact that you can use your ink, but the meditation involved in completing these. What a fun combination. This ink is so pretty, and I really think it's a great match for this pen. And there were absolutely no issues with the flow and the extra fine nib, which is why I love Diamine shimmer inks. So I gave the ink a 9, the flow a 9, and the comfort level of the pen a 9. Honestly, this combo, the shimmer, absolutely no issues with this shimmer, which is why I love Diamine inks so much. So let's look at the Zentangle and just look at that. I love the paper comparisons because it looks closer to my nail polish, and yes, I got new nail polish, a new manicure, and it looks closer to like a lilac or mauve than it does this magenta here. Like, this is just fantastic. But look at the consistency. I don't know if you can catch that, but the consistency in the shimmer in that Zentangle. Really fun combination, really fun ink. And this is one that if I could buy a bottle of this, I would, but I will probably just hoard this one, this Diamine Shimmertastic Frosted Orchid. Yes, I will definitely use that in the future. So, Diamine Shimmertastic Frosted Orchid with my Leonardo Momento Zero Andromeda. I'll take my stainless steel nib here and do a few figure eights and the line widths. I love that. Now, it does remind me a little bit of Vert, but more green rather than gray. So then let's go ahead now. It's not an exact match for the pen, but sometimes you just have to use an ink and it's not always going to be an exact match. Although I feel like now that I'm looking at my pen collection, I should have put it in something else, but that's okay. So we have Jacques, Herbin, Vert, Atlantide. And this is in my Zodiac Pen Co Cancer model with, or in the 3 olives Martini. And I believe this is an extra fine cursive smooth italic. Let's just see here. So, yep. Beautiful. All right, so I'll go ahead and paint in the different papers here. So the first paper is the Hobonichi Tomoe River paper. This is the A6 Hobonichi Hone from 2024. Then Rhodia, Midori, Erofil paper, onion skin. You can barely see the onion skin there. Yamamoto Bank, and bank paper. Look at how that's curling up. That's probably my favorite. And then you can already see how different it looks on the cream Midori paper. And then it also looks a little bluer on the Erofil paper. Really interesting. And now the rose, the C curves. We're just doing light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure, light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure. And when I did my class in Portland over the weekend, doing the roses was something that I showed them. And really, it's about learning the control with your brush and your hand. And it's obviously going to be different depending on your brush. Like, recommend a brush like this, like the pointed brush or the round brush, not a flat brush. And then bigger brushes, you'll obviously get bigger strokes on the heavy pressure. But if you want smaller roses, then use smaller brushes. And then adding a little water here for a better effect. Love that. This is a really beautiful shimmer ink, as I've come to know Jacques Herbin inks to be. And I love that it's a subtle shimmer and not a bomb of shimmer in your face. And it's also got a great flow in my extra fine nib. So I've given the ink a 9, the flow a 9, and the comfort level of the Cancer model an 8. And just looking at the Zentangle here, you don't see a lot of shimmer in the different paper samples, but what's interesting is how much more teal it looks on the Erofil paper, but then looks pretty consistent throughout. A little bit lighter on the Yamamoto Bank, but consistent between the bank and the onion skin. And then in the Zentangle itself, I'm not sure if you can see that shimmer here as I tilt that, but it's really pretty shimmer. And I feel like this is what the shimmer should have been for Wearingeul's The Autumn Night After 1,000 Years. It's there, but it's subtle, and I really like that. So that is Jacques Herbin Vert Atlantide with Zodiac Pen Co. 3 Olives Martini. It is the star of Erendil. How did I not remember that? And I have inked in here Inkebara Sand. So let's go ahead and use my Speedball B nib here and draw out the number 10. This was one of the inks that I swatched in my search for the perfect Pilot Iroshizuku dupe. And I discovered that yes, it does kind of look like it, but now it's looking a little more yellow in that swatch there. And then we'll, do some in my stainless steel Kakimori nib. And the line widths as well. Yeah, it's definitely looking more yellow than Inaho. But then this pen has a beautiful Star of Erendil nib, and it's an extra fine. So this is Inkebara Sand. And this is in my, not Zodiac, Mayfair pens. And this is the Noldor model in the Star of Erendil with an extra fine So now we're going to paint on the different papers because I love to see the effects of the inks on different papers because we all use different papers. We don't all use Tomoe River paper. We don't all use Midori, but also it feels like a waste to not see the properties of this ink on all these different papers. For me anyway, I feel like it's so fun being able to look at all the different inks. But like, look at how it's drying. It really looks a lot more yellow than Inaho. So probably not the option that you'd want. But look at the way that it's chromo shading on the Midori. It feels like the Midori paper really shines for this particular paper. But yeah, the chromo shading of the green and the yellow and the gold, gorgeous, gorgeous. So let's go ahead and paint the rose. So starting with the two little C curves in the middle, and then C curves on the outside, and then light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure, light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure. Just keep going around and around. One of the things that I also learned with the roses to make sure that not the two, or don't have the two edges right next to each other. So you want them to alternate. Ooh, let's get a little more on my brush here. Love that. And then if they run together, that is okay. Beautiful. And then if it's dried a bit, I'll add actually a little more here. Love it. Love it. Oh, and here. So now I'll draw out the grid for my Zentangle, and I even find drawing the grid out really relaxing. And then do this Zentangle. This one is from, it's actually a different account than I normally use, but most of these are from Carene. But this one in particular, I'm actually just looking this up while I'm doing this, and now I can't find it. But this was from a different artist, and I will link them in the description below. But similar to other ones, it's basically triangles and going over and over and around again. This ink shades really beautifully, but unfortunately there is some evaporation that happens with this pen. It's a little drier, wait, spell that wrong, drier than I normally like, but it is still a very pretty combo. I gave the ink an 8, the flow a 7, and the comfort level of the pen an 8. It is actually a really beautiful combo, although I do have difficulty matching this pen with an ink, but it is pretty good. So let's go ahead and look at the Zentangle. So there is the Zentangle and also the paper swatches. Look how much yellower and lighter it looks on the Midori paper as well as the Iroful paper. And this was an ink that I compared to Pilot Iroshizuku Inaho, but this is definitely lighter and way more yellow. And I feel like even the base color looks more like Birmingham Pen Co. Barley with that muted yellow, which I really like. And then in the Zentangle, you see in the areas where I'm going over the same area over and over again, there is a lot of shading that's happening there. It's a beautiful ink, but I don't think it's one that I'm going to add to my collection as a bottle. So that is Inkebara Sand with my Mayfair pens, Star of Erendil. So there are all the inks for ink 6 through 10 of 15 inks 30 days. And which one is actually my favorite? I really liked Diamine Frosted Orchid with my Leonardo Momento Zero Andromeda. I love shimmer and I love purple. Gorgeous combination. And probably my least favorite is Birmingham Pen Co. Weathered Brick, just because of how much it feathered and bled in my journal. And for me, that is really something that I don't want to happen, especially because that journal I'm going to be using over 4 years. So this year, next year, 2027, 2028. And if I'm having bleed through with Birmingham Pen Co. on one of the pages, it's going to affect future years. So I'm trying to stay away from Birmingham Pen Co. inks right now, just because that brand is the one that is consistently feathering and bleeding through my notebooks, which are the Sanzen Tomoe River paper produced in 2024. That's in a lot of 2025 planners and notebooks. All right, but that is it for me. Thank you all so much for watching. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. If you like this video, please leave me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks again for watching and have yourselves a great day.